Welcome back, everybody. I'm Jack Balbus. This is
Lance Finney,
Dr. Giffen.
Paul Spears.
Kyle Cordes.
and in this segment, we're going to be talking about Lance's branch with discriminated union types.
Yeah.
Ooh.
So I don't like discrimination. I am somewhat of a fan of unions, and I like types.
Yeah.
So
I don't know what to feel.
So I'm not sure how I feel about these things. So what are these things we're talking about?
Yeah, there's nothing specifically political about this. It's just the name that the TypeScript team at Microsoft decided to give a feature. So the story behind this is that we had one of these sessions about a month ago where the people who were involved that day were working on a new feature about reporting the status of an observable and dividing out the values that came back depending upon the content of it and creating new objects that represented either an error state, a success state, or a pending state. And I watched that video later. I couldn't be here that particular day. And I watched the video and I said, that actually would be a good spot for a discriminated union, which is a moderately advanced feature of TypeScript for its typing. And so I created this branch. There's two commits here. The first one was really ugly. I improved it a little bit. It's still a little bit ugly. But as ways to refactor what was happening on that branch to use discriminated unions. And so on one level, I want to talk about this and have it possibly be introduced into what's going on. On the other level, I think we need to have a conversation. Do we want to have this sort of feature in our curriculum? Because it's not an obvious thing about TypeScript. And so, you know, we're not introducing it in the 100 steps, we're introducing it in a 700 step. Maybe that is late enough in the day that it's worth doing, but we should probably look at the code first and see where we're going.
Yes, this is in step 706.1. Here we go.
Yeah, so this is built on top of the work that I had started.
Yeah.
And so I can give a background on like where we were and how we were doing it.
And
So-
we might want to look at diffs between where it was that I started and where after my second commit so that we can see the change there.
Yeah, so we probably actually want to start in fork to see the diff. First commit there.
This one?
Yeah. If you hit the full screen button, I think it's the I there. Right. And so on the right you have my code. Actually, Jack, if you want to make that smaller, we can keep it completely out of our viewport there.
Oh, yeah.
Just vertically.
And there's some ugliness in this version. We might want to include both of them instead of just this one because
Sure.
there's some stuff in here I don't want to keep. Like
So
I could
we're
have
gonna
squashed
do
it.
this, and
Yeah.
then-
And then time.
Well, actually,
Here,
no. So
and then-
click on my last one and then click on the previous one
Control
before.
click on.
Click there. And so this is the true diff of what I want to look at.
Okay, and then we want to look at the surface.
Yeah, that's the good place to start.
Okay.
All right. So on the right you have what I had done.
No, left is yours, right? It's mine.
Yeah, left is mine. I made a request update. The idea here being that like when you make an HTTP request, it'll be of some sort of type, and we wanted that type to flow into our interface on line 13. That way we could kind of like annotate that request, if you will. We could say not only does it have a chance of sending some data out of it, but it might also have an error associated with it, or it might have a status. But there was this unique situation to where if there was an error, there wouldn't be results, and if there was results, there wouldn't be an error. And the type on the left isn't sufficiently strong enough to convey those different states that this might be in.
And if it's pending, you won't have either.
Right. It'll just have the status. And so, like this first cut on the left, like got us started, and it allowed us to kind of start utilizing the different states, but it didn't have a way of expressing anything else about the state it was in. And so then Lance saw this pattern and knew to marry this idea with the feature discriminated unions. So I'll let you now explain what you've changed.
So the trivial change is I'm renaming statuses to status because an enum should be singular. That doesn't really matter.
Yeah.
But the more interesting thing is if we compare the request update on the left to the combination of the three interfaces on the right and the type of request update. So what's happening here is we actually have three different statuses that get accumulated together in an a union by ORing them
Yeah.
as between the success, the employer, and in progress.
So does the TypeScript compiler understands what you're trying to do here?
Absolutely.
So that if you create one that has that error, it knows you got to supply the error field and so on?
Yeah, so what exactly. So the important thing is that all three of these share something called status.
Yeah.
And so they all have a property called status.
Yep.
And then I'm using the enum. So it's going to be 0, 1, or 2, which is what those actually resolve to. And so if the status has a value of status.success
Yeah.
or a 0,
Yeah.
then it might have results.
Yeah.
But it can't have an error.
Yeah.
If the
But I have a
status,
question. How come it might have results?
because
I think it should have results.
I didn't know for sure if it was always going to have a result with this particular API.
The reason
or
I
not.
said is that like if you want to have one that explicitly had no result, I think you would just parameterize it to void. I don't think you need to make results obvious.
Yeah, I just wasn't
Optional.
sure about that. That's part of the reason I wanted to bring this to here. I don't know. Maybe it shouldn't be optional. I just don't know what the.
Yeah.
I don't remember the back end.
It'd be very strange for me for it to return success, but not return.
Yeah, I think that's right. I think that is a carryover from the fact that on the left I had to mark it as optional.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that for error, I was sure that it would always be there. For
Sure.
results, I wasn't as sure, so I just left it like that.
Yep.
But let's say for the moment that
Yeah.
so results.
Okay.
If you have a status of success, it will have a result, which will be parameterized.
So I will take the pro side of this.
Okay.
The thing on the left is what you do in languages that have an insufficiently powerful type system. And all the people who have been using the cool languages that have the good type systems for many years have been doing a thing like on the right. Because the thing on the right is expressing the story. Some people like over in the Elm world, for example, and they did not invent this. They picked it up from some previous things, but it's the idea of like make invalid states non-representable. Like make your type system where you can only write code that talks about valid states. If there's no way to ever even construct an invalid state, you never have to deal with an invalid state. You like push it back to the point it would have been constructed and fix the bug there. So, I mean, I'm looking at the number, that 706, that means this is quite deep in our curriculum. And like, I mean, now that I know TypeScript has this capability, if I saw the code on the left in code review, I would flag it and say, you know, it's now possible to put a more complete type around that. So that's the pro side.
So Kyle, does that mean, dragging us way off into the weeds here, does that mean like we should aim to always find a way to represent type objects where we have an optional field as actually a discriminated union?
If there is like when you have this situation where there are basically several different types of answer, then the answer to that is yes.
Or that type of data that is going through our system could be in multiple states.
Yeah, so
like, like here it's gone through a piece of code that like upgrades it to another type.
Like there's a bit of a wrinkle here that look how like line 24 on the right, where you have a whole interface called in progress just to have a status field in progress, just so you can put it in there. A language with an even more complete type system, you wouldn't have to do that. You could say like a language that had, well, actually we do have true OR types.
I mean,
If we had sufficiently strong OR types in here, you wouldn't even have, like the status would basically become part of the thing. You wouldn't even have to have like this status field. But to answer your question, yeah, we should always be on the lookout for this or other mechanisms to tighten our types so you can only represent reasonable, correct states of the program.
So I think the reason that status value is there is so that at runtime it can make this determination.
Right, and the wrinkle is that TypeScript kind of has this kind of constraint that they're following is to make the types disappear during compilation. And the thing I would describe, it would have to synthesize a way of representing, like an OR type where some of the things in there were themselves like just a type. It would have a problem.
so the big advantage of using a discriminated union like this is that we get automatic type guards. So if we somewhere along the line got a request update and we wanted to use its error, we don't really have it here. I think it's going to be in another spot. But we could say if status equals status.error, within the code block from that if, or if request update, whatever,
Yep.
dot status equals status dot error. Within the block after that, the request update would be of the type employee error.
Yeah.
So we don't have to
Oh, it's
do any
nice.
other checkings
It's
like that.
nice. It's
The
really
canonical
nice.
example I see in a lot of code for this is, let's say we have shape, where shape could be a square, a rectangle, or a circle,
Yeah.
and we're going to calculate the area. Because then you can have a switch statement
Yeah.
on the type, and then make use of the radius or the size or the combination of length and width to do the calculation, and you don't have to switch between the types.
I have a question for you.
Yeah.
On line 30 on the right, instead of saying, well, actually no, excuse me, on line 31 on the right, instead of the third branch of this discriminated type being an in progress, could it have been literally just status.inProgress?
I do not believe so.
Yeah,
But
so
it's worth checking. But I
Yeah.
don't think so. I think it has to be, in order to get the full feature, it has to be an interface
Right.
that includes the thing we're discriminating
So
on.
languages that take this idea further, like Elm or Haskell or 57 academic languages whose names I don't even know, probably 570, you would be able to express that even more directly. But still, I think this is a great improvement. I really like it.
One thing that's interesting here, line 29, the first of the three options starts with a pipe, starts with an or. Prettier did that. I didn't do that.
You don't have to. It lets you to make it prettier.
Yeah, well, it's just so that if we remove that first one, we don't have to change it. I was surprised when I realized that had happened.
Oh yeah.
So it's nothing or, which is kind of a weird feature. I had no idea that was legal.
It is an
JavaScript or
oddity,
TypeScript.
yeah.
I guess it's TypeScript, not JavaScript.
So what do you think
It's
of
a
this
type
thing?
thing.
Oh yeah, no, I like it.
Okay, so let's look at the rest of the code. I do agree that line 16, we should get rid of the question mark. Well, there's more. There were more changes below on that file.
Yeah.
So there is a little bit.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Line 50. This is going to be in the occluded portion, isn't it? Or is it not?
No, you'll have to bring it up a little bit.
Wait, what?
So
The part that's covered by our faces on the lower right.
So I'm happy. So what this code is doing is it's getting the results from the backend, and then depending upon whether it is, if it's pending, that's the start with. So we get the in progress. If we get a good result, we get lines 52 through 54, and then we add that status in order to have the value. And if it's an error, then we do the good thing on line 56. I like line 56 a lot better than I like lines 52 through 55.
What's 53? That's what I was thinking.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I
What's
don't
up with
know.
that?
So let's jump over to Visual Studio Code, and maybe we can find a better way to do it, because I was not happy that I had to do that.
That is really weird looking code.
And if you want to see even uglier tries at it, you can look at the intermediate commit that I made.
What?
But you should be able to get rid of that.
Like, what would the type of status.success be?
But now it's unhappy. And now if you scroll down in this
Oh.
box that popped up,
So undo that. Undo what you did. So
So-
now I'm super curious what the type of the second thing was. So if you hover the second word success, okay, and if you hover the first one, so what?
I have no idea why this gives a problem on line 53 but not line 56. But as you just saw, when Jack removed the as status.success, at least within the editor, but not at command line, it complains.
I gotta stand for okay.
So this is,
Status.
so if you can scroll down a little bit in the pop-up, you'll see that eventually it says that status success is not an instance of status.
Status. Results.
Yeah, can you
Status,
scroll down in that
status.
box a little bit?
Let me. Yeah.
Okay,
I
that's,
gotta read the whole thing.
yeah, here we have it all. So
Okay, so status is not assignable. Okay, so then status. Okay,
Okay,
so
I think I know.
so it's
what you're
on the
talking
success one. So type status is not assignable to type status.success.
about. All right, so if you close this,
What does this even mean?
so right here, we're not actually supplying any. So right now we have a map and a catch error, and so at this point, whenever the TypeScript compiler is trying to determine what kind of value comes out of this thing, the object that you're declaring in line right there, it actually doesn't like that.
Mhm.
And so it's actually not able to properly infer that we are in fact trying to scope it to a property of status.
So which line are you saying is the problem?
Do we need to be explicit
I
with
think-
map typing?
This whole thing.
So yes, if we are explicit about the return type of map, I think it will be happy.
So if we map it there to, and what is this type?
That's my next question here is.
So it's
Well,
not.
it's whatever one of the members.
So
of,
it's going to be a
Update of an
success
employee
of employee
Yeah.
array.
yeah, it's one of the members of the discriminated union, right? Or, so what was that? What is that member of the? Like I literally don't remember what the types are called. Is success the name of it?
I believe so. Do we need? Does this need two arguments, like a
It might.
like employee array and then employee array?
There it goes.
So
There we go.
I don't know why that's necessary though. I don't, and why it's not necessary
So,
on 56.
I wonder if what's happening is it sees this object.
And it sees it as a number as opposed to a property of status as the.
No, but it knew the type of status.
It
of
did.
success.
So I think what's happening here is it sees that this thing is of type specifically status.success, which means that it must be a success type. But then when it's trying to infer the type, it doesn't know that it's always going to return a success, and so it thinks that it needs to be like
More generic status.
a generic status.
But if you remember, I had it as status.success as status.success.
Which is very
not
weird.
As status, and that was fine.
That is so weird.
Yeah,
Because this seems like it's achieving that same thing. It's like just making it clear what it's going to be.
and this is less offensive than what I had before,
Definitely.
but I still don't know why it's necessary. Like this is, and if you go to the intermediate version, it's much worse. But yeah, it's weird,
What I like about this code is that it's explainable.
except for the part that I can't explain.
No. No, the hard part to explain because we don't know yet, but if we really wanted to know, we need to just start boiling this down until we got the smallest reproducible case, and then from there we could probably find it. But just as it's sitting right now, that the type on line 52 does make it, incrementally more clear.
Yeah.
What we're trying to do here.
It's being explicit in a way that we can explain, whereas what I had before was explicit in a way that we couldn't explain.
Yeah, that's no joke. But I don't think we should let the fact that somebody probably ought to go find a minimum reproducible case of the weirdness and investigate, let that stop us from finishing this up. What do you think?
Yeah, I think that's true. I'm pretty sure the explanation though is that when it interprets status.success when assigned as a value, it's interpreting the result of this as a thing that returns a number, which is not sufficiently typable to a thing that is a thing belonging to status. When you said, but this number that I assigned is of a type of a thing that belongs to status.
It didn't whine about it line 56 or 57. That's
Well, so theoretically, I should be able to do this, right?
And
and that's
then-
because on 52 you've added the explicitness.
Yeah, but then if I delete this,
Delete one more character.
oops. I think I made the same suggestion.
okay,
And
that's not what I expected to have happen.
so I don't know if this is a rough edge of TypeScript. Yeah, I don't know.
There must be some legacy oddity. I actually don't like it this way. There must be some legacy oddity around enums that we just don't know.
Well, and then
Because
maybe
that is really, really weird.
its map is different, just fundamentally different than catch
Could
or
be.
start with, and if we try to do the contents of start with on the map, it'd have the same problem. I don't know. I didn't try that.
We'll try hovering over that catch error, see how that got typed.
Yeah, to a success.
Oh yeah, so it got mapped into a status ERR any. It didn't get mapped into a status as always the member of the discriminated union.
And it does say success
I have
partway through.
I have a question for you. Is the version of TypeScript we are using correct and up to date with it should be.
I think that's as up to date as we can get with our current version of Angular.
Okay.
Well, I mean, I updated Angular on this project a while ago, so I might be able to get newer updates.
Well, but they typically only add TypeScript support at like minor or major versions, but they haven't done that many minor versions recently, so it's probably not until Angular 9 when they're
oh
going to
yeah,
further.
this is on 8.2. Yeah, we haven't texted it up 8.2.
Well, 9 is going to ship shortly.
So let's look
We
at
have a
the,
long conversation about Ivy to have, by the way. Yeah. We'll have that off camera.
let,
A lot of weeping.
let's remove the question mark in the definition of success, because I think that's clear. On line 16, yeah. And now let's go look at the diff.
Oh, they got big things, all kinds of things.
Blew the whole thing up now!
So it's possible that the success on line 52 should really be a request update. I don't know.
Wow.
Oh,
So is success the member of the discriminated union?
Yes.
Is that the member? 'Cause
Scroll
I
up a
don't
little bit.
I don't see how that could not.
Back. Oh yeah. No, back down. Back down. There. Yeah. Line 29. The success of T.
You're saying you want to try typing it as a request update instead of a success? Sure. I mean, at this point, I don't know.
So line 52.
You saying the other one on line 52? Change it. No, that
Next
one.
one.
That one. Success one.
Yeah. I had no.
Yeah. Okay. I would undo that.
I don't know
I'd
why
undo that.
removing that question mark had this effect.
So what? Hey, try changing. Oh, that would be funny.
Okay, great.
No. Okay.
Yeah, while we're having angry types, let's boil it down to the bare angry types here.
Okay.
so now
So
that fixes it.
Okay, so that's I'm somewhat less upset about this than before. So now undo it until that thing goes back and see if we're gonna make this thing work.
Well, no, let's right here is what we expect to work. So let's see what the error is now. Like cover over it. What's the actual error? You could go down to the last line. The last line's the only one that matters. Okay, so status is not
So-
assignable to type.
So what is the type? Like if you just hover over that status.success, what is the type of that thing? Like does each element, like does each value of an enum have its own type, or are they all the same type?
not sure.
Does it enum member? Huh. So it's not clear to us what exactly the type of the thing is. So status, can you scroll again to the bottom there?
I wonder.
We're not trying to assign status
Okay.
to anything.
Well, look, no, it's saying, so a type, status of just some status, results employee, is not assignable because this thing here would have to have a status.success in it. It's saying the type of status has to be a status.success.
But one, it is status.success, and two, when we set status.success as status.success, it still didn't do it in this particular case. When we remove the question mark.
Yeah, so what is there an idiomatic way to construct a member of a discriminated union in TypeScript? Because it's possible that just maybe making that literal is not, maybe
Okay. All right, here's another possibility.
you could put a cast right there, try forcing it for this to be the right thing. You just cast it right there to be a success, yeah, that'll work there too. Success, employee, something.
Employee array. Okay, here's another
Well,
possibility.
now let's see. Now what else do
It'll
we
be
have?
the same error.
No, see, it's angry about the error one now.
Yeah.
Because it also did not infer this
Well,
type correctly. See,
Are you
the,
sure
the
it's
error
not
shifted
until
down.
it's angry about- No, the whole thing is still bad.
Using type annotation, type assertion on object
So
literals
this is
is forbidden.
because it doesn't want us to do this casting.
Yeah, I think you have to do it as like a thing before, not after.
So here's another
No,
possibility.
that's
Yeah.
the same type of casting.
Well, usually when I see documentation about discriminated unions, the type is just a string. It's not an enum. So maybe we should just use a string of error in progress and success.
Well, let's make it a string enum real quick.
Sure.
That's actually better because so the nice thing about those is if they get printed as plain JavaScript, you'd much rather see the word error than like a 2 and have to like know what a 2 means.
Yeah, especially if it's something that's coming from a backend anyways. the
Yeah.
types or anything.
Yeah.
Probably be
That would be funny if this fixed it.
That did not fix it.
Okay, but so let's
Let's see if it made the error different. So it seems to me that something is not working.
let's yeah. Let's do that for all of those.
No, that didn't do
And I
it.
do success as
Well,
status
except
success. No. The string success.
String success as status.
No, like
See,
the,
I don't
the
think-
literal string.
Yeah, I know.
Okay.
I
I want to see getting rid of the enum overall, like as part of this. Let's just make that like I mean we don't have to comment on the enum.
you're saying you don't need the well.
Like if we change line 15 to just the string and line 20 to just the string and line 24 and we just use strings, then we might be getting away from it's having trouble figuring out the difference between an enum
But do we like that though?
Well, I don't know, but it'll be a data point.
and it's more canonical. It's
Is
more
it?
standard. It's what I'm used to seeing in
Okay.
the documentation. So now, yeah, change all those.
I suppose I could have just.
Status
Yeah.
dot.
You have to figure out how to. It's just make this be the string success and so on.
Yeah, so now what
Now what's going on? Hover it again.
I'm surprised by that. I thought string, can you scroll down?
Yeah, we gotta. I hate how it defaults to not showing you the.
Oh, because it doesn't
Yeah,
know that the
okay.
string success
I know
is
this.
literally
This is-
string success.
I've seen this before.
Yeah.
This was discussed in the TypeScript release notes in one of the last few versions. It has to do with how literals get typed. Literals don't get typed to be the literal value. They get typed to be the type of the literal value. So if you say status that, this thing status gets typed as string. It does not get typed as a string success. Let's go read the TypeScript release notes and just go read how this works. So this is, I think this is what we're hitting on all of
Yeah,
these.
you can see yeah.
Even with, you can put the enum back. Now, I now see where the problem lies. It has to do with how object literals are assigned types in TypeScript.
Or do we want to keep the string
Let's
enum?
keep the
I
string.
like the string version, yeah. But now we know we got to go investigate this, right? We got to go learn how.
Gotta go learn TypeScript.
Yeah, that's a crazy thing. Like,
Which does remind me, there was a question earlier today, like, I suggested we might want to build type in here, so I asked him what his opinion was. And his opinion was, yeah, we should teach this, but what we should really teach is
string out.
an advanced or moderate to advanced TypeScript course.
Yeah, we're working on that.
And
Yeah,
so,
yeah, that's in the pipeline. Yeah.
so like, it would help us learn details like this.
Yeah, we don't care about strings. Have nothing to do with this, Jack. It has to do with literals and how they get typed. And so this is discussed in a recent change to. Let's see here. Okay, this might.
I'm skeptical because of what I see on line 1 and I know how I've used to work with on line 1.
Yeah, and I don't think this is. Yeah. Can we find a TypeScript changelog? Because I really think this was addressed. I think they added a feature that let you get things typed the way you wanted when you needed them to be. And if you just go to it's on the TypeScript website, and it shouldn't be hard. There we go. But by the way, that what's new thing might have been it.
This one?
Well, this is 364, and we know it's not that one, right? Because we can't be on a thing that was released 9 days ago.
It's at 363.
Yeah. Or are they that caught up?
They are actually pretty good.
Oh, because 3.7 is in beta still. Okay. Yeah. So we're probably going to have to actually on the search you ran, there is a page on their wiki called "What's New in TypeScript," and I have a feeling that is more likely to take us to an understanding. Yeah. See, so for each major version, they briefly summarize what's new.
Yeah.
So I think there was something in here a while back, and I don't even know what version, that had to do with how literals get typed.
Well, they're all here in one page, so search for
Yeah.
There's a thing about union types on here as well.
Ooh.
That looks about right.
Hey!
And object literals.
Yes.
That's
Okay.
No, that's what we're having trouble with.
On multiple object types, we now normalize the object in each constituent. I feel like this might be the thing we're looking for, but I'm not mentally parsing this very well.
So it's interesting, like, if we had been introducing discriminated union in just a thing where we were doing switches and stuff like that, none of this would, I think none of this would have come up. It's the combination of trying to add discriminated union to RxJS's strict type control, like that is exposing an issue that we would have missed otherwise.
Wait, what is that? Okay. I really think there is something introduced at some point that controls, like there's some syntax or something to make it type a literal in a way that it takes the actual, that takes it more specifically. Because right now what it's doing is it doesn't take the type, like it takes the thing you gave it as an example and takes that type. It doesn't take the thing you gave it literally. That's from 2016.
I want to say.
So how does any of this actually interplay with the notion that you could actually tell there to be a type of, like, this string, or this other string, and only those strings?
The string union types.
Yeah.
This is a different problem from that. Even if you did that, if you made a literal, an object literal that had a field x,
Well, I think
with the value of the string foo, it's going to say that the type of that literal is x:string, not x:foo.
right. Yes, I think we're going to run into this problem regardless of how we slice it.
I'm telling you, this has been discussed somewhere, and there is a way to slice it that fixes it.
I still have no idea how removing the question mark on the results property broke it again.
I think because it could accept. It implemented the interface, right? Maybe.
Oh. Is there a way to do this like this? Look. Is there a way to do this so that we say, const something colon the name of the type I want equal?
Constinames. That's
What?
another thing.
Oh, actually, the word const might actually be what comes in.
There is a constiname concept in TypeScript.
No,
Go back up to the definition.
there's a const object literal. I think so.
Oh, so you put
Like
const
that?
equal.
No, I don't remember. I don't remember where it is.
You put a
And then you
const
run into constant
somewhere
problems
crazy.
with constinames with AOT, if I remember correctly.
Ooh,
It's something like that. But there is an
type
as
literal
const.
assertion as const to prevent type widening. Okay, so type widening is the problem we're getting.
Yeah.
Okay, so they call this type widening.
Can
Look
we
at
name
this.
So
this?
hang on.
Let's find it out.
Pull up the term type widening in Google so that way we can have it
Yeah.
on camera.
TypeScript type widening is the thing we're trying to make not happen. And there's a suggestion. I want to know. I'm reading the issue, but I don't know what got implemented. Okay, so this is the thing I was describing, right?
Okay.
So if you use const when you declare it, it becomes the literal type, not the widened type. So what you get by default, if I say let x equal, quotes foo, x gets the type string. But if you want x to get the value, if you want it to be, want its type to be the actual thing you put in there, if you want it to not be widened. So if you go back to our code, I can now point to exactly what's going wrong. Okay, the reason this fails, going down to where it fails, is that status.success gets widened to be the type status. Well, a thing with the type status and a result in it doesn't match the contract for what we're trying to return here. So there's two ways to do this. We can either expand the code out and say const something equal, or there's a way to stick the word const in front of or behind or something, this object literal, and then it will work. It sounds crazy, but it will work. Try as const afterward. I just don't remember. But I don't remember what they ended up with, but there was discussion of this. And I'm trying to figure out what the actual
We
fix
do have
was.
const for status.success object.
Yeah.
Maybe extract status success into a variable.
Yeah,
I'm
extract. all
trying to
data
find the
constants.
const. For hinting literal type influence.
Constant in
Tuple annotation.
no, not module scope. That's files.
I was just trying to make it work. Like it doesn't.
There is a thing you can do. Try putting as const after status.success.
I meant that, yeah.
I'm trying to figure out what is the. So like here's a thing that'll definitely work. If you stop trying to do this in line here, if you like put a curly brace, you could say const x equal that thing, and then you would get the right behavior. And then return that thing. And now I think this, so now if you hover this thing, see what type that is.
Because the object is a const instead of the
Okay.
fields inside.
Then it's still not doing
Fields
it.
inside
Status
cannot be
success to a
constant.
variable.
So how do we do this? I'm trying to.
That's still not going to work, Lance, because the problem is that the property status itself cannot be assigned to a constant value because it's inside as a property of an object, and those can be mutated at any time.
But what if we give X the actual explicit type we want?
Yeah, try that. But that, yeah,
So go back
Context
to what
for
we had.
literal expressions.
Control Shift Z a couple
I'm
times.
I'm trying to find where they actually fix this thing.
And now,
It's
yes,
just
I give X
miserable.
the like status
Okay, this
Success,
is the
whatever.
syntax.
or success. Sorry.
This is the syntax I'm trying to get.
Hold on, we're doing a couple things. So let's let Jack finish
Oh.
this, and then you'll need to return X. No. Okay. What is?
No, well, firstly, you wouldn't see it fixed unless you fixed all of them. Just fixing one of them, it's all going to be broken until you fix all three of them.
Comment outlines 59 and 60 then. So we're only dealing with one at a time.
Oh, okay. Next, I found the merged PR because now I think if we had known that the key magic word was const when we looked through the TypeScript change history, we would have found this.
Okay.
But I just searching is hard. And
Can we pull it up in Google on the big screen?
I mean it's trivial. I'm pointing it out right here. This is what they say is the syntax that was decided on. Literal as const. Take the whole literal, put as const after it, and it should work.
so do this, Jack. Uncomment out 59 and try it on the next line.
Yeah.
So we got one solution up above.
So according to this thing that was merged, that works. And now you can do the next one, and that will
And
work.
then we can go back and do the first one now that we fixed the second
Right.
two.
So, I knew there was something. It just took a wild fumble.
This is adding other complicated TypeScript things that we now have to decide whether we want to teach.
That's just weird. Like, is that a limitation of TypeScript at this point, or is that what
So
they're going to do from now on?
This is the syntax that they decided on after considering
okay.
Too much extra stuff here.
they considered a lot of different ways
Well,
to do
you
it.
also have
object to assign.
you have X, like things are just kind of
Yeah,
you're gonna have to,
assigning an object. and everything.
yeah, you're gonna have to put it all the way back before it is happy.
there we go.
Okay, so it was a long and circuitous path, but the reason it goes wrong is that by default, when you create a literal object, or even just const x equal 5 or let y equal 3, it does type widening. It doesn't type it for the value you have put in. It types it for the type of the value you put in. But in this case, we desperately need the type of status to be status.success to satisfy the discriminated union.
To narrow the type.
And
Let's leave the phrase type widening in there just so people can Google it.
Yeah.
I mean, type widening and type narrowing come together.
and why don't you say use and then quotes as const? Because that would make it a little bit more clear.
Yeah, I have seen references to this. I'd forgotten about it completely. Let's scroll back up to the top. We have other changes here. Let's see if there's anything.
My feeling
Okay,
is that
those are
the
good
beer
changes.
has been opened. I hear a lot of festivity coming around our office.
Yeah.
Can we look at the diff for the other file then, just to so that we can round it out and see what else was involved.
What do you think? Is this even sane to drop that as constant?
I think so.
700 stuff.
Okay. So let's look at the
Is
app
that everyone?
components. Yes.
What?
And let's
So that's just
do the eyeball.
Oh, we have to do that.
I mean, what do you want to have happen? If they change it,
Work.
if they change the semantic to take away type widening, it would break all the code in the whole world. They're not going to do that. So, I mean, and furthermore, now that they shipped this, they're not going to break this either.
Yes, like
The best you can hope for is they add another additional optional
Right, yeah.
syntax you like more,
Yeah.
just to do a non-widening type. So,
specify that this isn't a const, but please don't widen it.
Right.
Like, is this-
This is a narrow type.
So if we boil this all down, this comes back to the fact that once again, JavaScript was built in about 10 days, and it didn't have the notion of const
Or types.
or types baked
I
into
think-
the JavaScript language.
If I were in charge, I would add a new keyword, and it would go like this.
PR's welcome.
and then the next version, the word literally would stop meaning literally, and you have to say really literally.
Yeah, because literally can mean literally or figuratively.
Right.
All right.
You could say actually.
No sarcasm.
It's like a non-sarcasm marker.
How about like a non-sarcasm emoji, like Unicode? Unicode marker.
Maybe a comment that simply says, "Don't widen me, bro."
Yeah.
How about that?
Oh my.
All right, let's go ahead and shut
So-
this down so we can.
Well, yeah.
Yeah.
This is the most we can hope for a Friday afternoon.
I
To stumble our way onto as const.
mean, I do want to take a look at the other file where this is consumed. I know we want to close, but the big advantage of one of the advantages of being able to do all this is old line 21. Employees wasn't just a request update because we can now narrow it down to that is a successful request.
Oh yeah.
And the error we actually can say it's explicitly an employee error.
Why are you doing a filter and a map?
That is some of the ugliness, and maybe we can figure out a way around that.
Just type guard it.
Um,
So
what?
on line 39, you can do res. If you wrap it in parentheses, you can do res. Res is.
Okay, well let's go to the code. And
Wait, what are you saying?
so I
You can
had to
type
change a
out-
filter to a filter and a map in order to get the typing right, but he's suggesting a cleaner way of doing it.
I'm pretty sure you taught me this.
I may have, and I've just forgotten.
So the cool part about the filter
Oh.
is that since it returns a
Oh.
boolean, you can actually use the filter as a type guard.
Okay,
you
so,
can
Wait, so
do
wait,
type guard
Wait,
as a
what is he trying to achieve again?
so request when it comes in is an observable of the
Request.
wider type.
Okay.
And I want employees as the result of that to be an observable of success.
So
Of
now we
one-
fixed our types. What if you just comment out line 40? What happens?
It's worth trying.
You just hover over just that employees and see what it.
So,
So this is what Zachary's suggesting is that he just type annotate line 39.
Yeah, there's you basically do a type guard inside the filter.
Wait, I'll hover that again. So it's just saying that it doesn't understand that this narrowed the types. Is that what you're trying
Yeah,
to say?
right. So you have to do a type guard inside the filter,
so
Oh.
which you can do because filter accepts a boolean as a return.
Yeah.
So what's the command here?
I think if you wrap res in parentheses, not the right side, the left side, it's all on the left side.
Ah, okay, that's right. Okay.
No, not
Not
like
left,
left
yeah.
of the lambda, yeah. So wrap that
Yeah.
in parentheses and say after that you do a colon after the parentheses.
Like so that we're changing the return type.
Yeah,
Oh,
you want
right.
Res is or res as. Is or as? I don't know.
It's, yeah,
Okay, and then the actual type you want, so success employee array.
that's right. Yeah.
So you're just saying this filter function.
If it returns true, res is gonna be that. If not, it's not.
Yeah.
Interesting.
And it doesn't get back if it's not.
So this is using a.
So
it's
how do you
called-
feel about explaining this to people when they first learned TypeScript possibly 2 days ago?
I'm loving it because the only time
We get
this
to this,
actually
yeah.
comes up in class
Yeah.
is when you have your more advanced students who have already understood and run into the problem of needing a more sophisticated communication channel for their requests.
Okay.
Also, just make sure res results, all of those have the same.
Oh
Probably.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
right.
I think I will claim that predated me, and I don't know if that's true.
Hey, how come we didn't do anything funky down on line 47?
I didn't need to for some reason, and
Yeah.
I didn't know why. I
don't know why.
either.
That's why I asked.
It's probably because the one that has status in progress.
We don't
doesn't
care
have
about
any-
anything
doesn't-
else.
Oh,
There's
yeah.
nothing additional, so it doesn't
Oh,
care.
I'm gonna
type it
Yeah.
anyway.
Well, here we're no, because we're not doing a res. We actually want the Boolean result.
Oh yeah.
We're mapping here, yeah.
So-
Oh, because request in flight
Yeah,
is a
yeah,
Boolean.
right. Yeah.
It's a map, not a filter.
You
That's
don't need
why.
to do anything to this one.
Exactly.
Yeah, I catch you, because it's not a filter, is
Right.
why, yeah.
Wow.
That was a fun path.
So like
Yeah, this
when
is
my commit message is for the like my first one was like there's a lot of weirdness. My second one is less weird, still a little weirdness, and
We've gone full weird now.
well I don't know.
It's a good weird,
Because I understand what's going on. I had these weird I'm doing an as here, and I don't know why. I'm doing a map here that I wish I didn't have to do, but what
Now you know
Zachary
why.
remembered here and what Kyle figured out on the other file, I'm much happier with this. Now, again, it's I can't wait to see one of our instructors who someone says pull this up and they look at this and they're like, what on earth is going
Yeah, so
on
like
here?
discriminated unions, type guardian, type filters, whatever the const thing is. So
Hey,
type
type
widening,
widening.
type narrowing. Yeah,
Well, you're not narrowing it, you're just not widening it.
correct. Yeah.
If only there was a word that meant not wide,
But not narrow.
thinner.
Thinning
We're thinning this
type color.
type.
Not non-widened? I don't know. It's,
And then there was one other
Don't
file that
supersize
changed.
me.
I think it might have been, I'm not sure why there were changes in this one last file. It may have been an accident and then it should be reverted, or it may be, okay, just, I removed things, cleaned things up.
Because this is Lance's changes on top of a work in progress change.
Yeah. So, and there were
we
just
should
things
wrap
that
this
were
up.
bad and
It's
I fixed
4:30
it.
on Friday.
Alright, I'm gonna go ahead and commit this because
Stage them both.
Stage both.
That was a,
That was fun.
wow.
Fixed types, if only that were
Nothing to unpack there at all.
That became fixed. So I know, the underlying issue of the error handling, there's still work to be done, but I think that we can incorporate this and then it will go on from there.
How is it that we've never stumbled into the morass of things that we just did before?
I've the reason I remembered the as const is I was working on some code where I had to go do that.
And I had some code yesterday where I had to do something weird because I didn't understand it, and now I know what I'll have to do to fix it if I can find it again.
Well,
I've
unfortunately,
never used dedums with this.
no, I now see the pattern of, if you have optional properties, and it is because, you're going to do some transformative code that puts it into a different state, I'm going to see this pattern everywhere now, and I'm going to, start living and breathing this.
Yeah.
Yes.
You're gonna find out you have to put as const in every verb you write.
And you can see why when I watched the video, I had this in mind. I'm like, this needs a discriminated union. Yeah, because it makes sense and it
Yeah.
helps.
alright, well
Let's say goodbye to everybody.
it's
Thanks.
the end of the day, so see everybody, do YouTube things, subscribe, click the bell, and
Is there some smashing
some
involved or something?
Who
It's
knows?
my impression some smashing is involved.
smash the
Something like
subscribe
that.
button.
Something
Just,
like that. Yeah,
punch
that's
your
right.
computer monitor, but don't
Yeah,
actually.
yeah. We're out.
So